Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. Very happy that we have an almost full room, which is not a certainty after lunch break, especially. So I hope we can provide you with an exciting topic that we're going to talk about in the panel, which is really about the collaboration between corporates and startups. And to do a reality check, like it says in the title, we brought two representatives from corporate, two representatives from startup, to really talk about real-life examples of things that work, don't work, what do we actually want from each other, common pitfalls, and hopefully you can walk out of this room with a couple of practical advice in the end. So let's start with a quick introduction of the panelists. So first we have Stephanie Berliner from Holo. You want to say a bit about yourself, about your company?
Sure. So I'm here for Holo. I'm the head of DACH, so meaning I'm responsible for the German-speaking markets in the European area, but also responsible in different projects. And Holo is operator and implementer for autonomous driving. And it's a company built 10 years ago from the Semler Group, which is the Volkswagen importer in Denmark. So, and 3 years ago, AMAG also stepped in and invested so that we could develop together more the autonomous driving aspects for the core business in the automotive industry. And I myself, I have background in automotive industry as well. I worked also in the aircraft industry and for consulting and bringing this back. So my role specifically is the go-to-market strategy, build the network, build the partnerships, also understand what kind of projects are involved, to understand also the framework, the regulation framework for autonomous driving in these specific markets, and then build the strategy towards the core business from our owner in that sense.
Thanks. Next we have Philipp Wetzel from AMAG, which was just mentioned.
Yes, good afternoon all together. My name is Philipp Wetzel. I'm responsible for corporate development and the Innovation Lab. So the full name is Innovation and Venture Lab. So we do that now for 8 years, investing in startups, develop new products, looking for new business models in the area of mobility. In that period of time, we invested a lot in startups and cooperated with startups. So maybe we can talk about that, why we do that. And and I brought Steffi with me and asked her if she wants to accompany me here to this panel. So because we have this cooperation and can talk about maybe some interactions and pros and cons. So for these among you who doesn't know who AMAG is here in this room, then I can give you a short. No, everything is clear. Thank you. Then I can hand over to Jan.
Jan from Innova Energy.
Yeah, so hi everybody. I'm Jan Patrick, co-founder from Innova Energy. So who of you doesn't know Innova Energy? Okay. We have the goal to promote renewable energy development in Switzerland. So what we do is we take over the financing, planning, installation of photovoltaic installations on third-party roofs. So we cooperate with owners, make partnerships. They give us the roof. We plant photovoltaic installations as well as battery storage systems. And we are developing our own EMS, meaning management software for energy, and to sell the energy in communities, in local authorities, as well as trade flexibility, and really looked at, okay, for the installations, we can get the most out of it, meaning also we have the biggest impact as we can install as many PV installations on rooftops that normally wouldn't make sense to install PV.
Yeah. And finally, there's myself. I'm George from Axpo. So who of you knows Axpo? Not all. So it's the biggest electric utility in Switzerland. So we would be the natural corporate partner for you guys, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I do at Axpo is similar to what you do. I think at least the job title sounds similar. It's head of innovation ventures. So what we do is for the group. So we do a lot of stuff in the energy industry, basically across the scope. We are talking with our business units to understand what are really the challenges for the next 2, 3, 5 years, and which of these challenges could be addressed with startup solutions. And with that knowledge, go out in the market to look for the most promising strategic partners for Axpo, for commercial relationship, or also an equity investment. So that's what we do. Okay, now we got that settled. So how about we start with the kind of overarching goal of like you're a quick startup and you're your own boss, you can do whatever you want. Why the hell would you want to cooperate with a corporate that gives you the tight handcuffs and tells you what to do?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I think corporates, like for us as a founder perspective, they can bring a lot of value, also challenges and some pain, but also a lot of values. For example, like of course they have often a lot of resources to invest. Also, it helps for building trust with clients, meaning, you know, if you go to a client and you sell him something and you show, okay, hey, let's make a partnership in this one and this in this region, they come to you and, okay, yeah, why should I trust you and what is your track record, so on, so on, so on. So if you can go together and you say, okay, for example, hey, Axpo is our partner, we're doing this together, it gives a lot of trust to the end client, and this, I would say, is almost the biggest, yeah, what could help us in the startup as well a lot, and we often try to, yeah, to form these kind of partnerships with different corporations, so that, yeah, we have trust on the market, even though we are a startup.
So we say credibility and trust.
Yeah, credibility, trust, and of course, like then cash for scaling.
Doesn't hurt.
Not all business model can or want to be bootstrapped. So if you want to scale, sell faster, grow the company, yeah, as a startup, you don't have a lot of cash, but Axpo or other corporates, of course, they have. So yeah, as a founder's perspective, that can really help boost your business ideas and have impact. Yeah.
What about, does that match with your experience at Holo, or would you add or change anything from your perspective?
No, I think the perspective is right, but maybe it makes more sense if we hear first Philip's perspective, why to invest in a startup like Holo, because then it's easier to explain. Because for most of the people maybe don't know really the value chain of autonomous driving, then maybe it's easier to add this value.
Yeah, thank you. We are here at a startup and venture event, and I think at first we have to define what do we go for, what is our target when we invest into startups. So I think that's not the same targets like VCs have. So we do not we call ourselves strategic investors. So we are active in a certain branch, and we want, of course, to innovate. We want to look for new business models, etc., etc. Therefore, we scout all over Europe and the world, and therefore we see some activities that probably are interesting for us in Switzerland. Some of them we kick out because we have a very professional public transport system, so a lot of interesting ideas that don't work or you cannot make money with it. So a startup help us to bring us much faster to new technology, to new business models. If we invest, we are closer involved, we learn much faster, so our learning curve is much steeper. So with the help and the cooperation with the startups, I think we can create much more in shorter time. That's just in a short way. Of course, there are other aspects that we look for, but I think we can talk about later about these points.
Yeah, and maybe to add also that this specific startup like Holo was a spin-off of an importer. It's not like a startup which we had just the investment from corporates in that sense. So it is a corporate startup from the base, meaning we had to develop 10 years ago what will it look like the value chain in the future and what parts might be important for the core business. And this is also changing throughout the years. So right now, we know that we have really a specific knowledge, and what is important right now for our investors or for our owners specifically is building the knowledge. So the specific IP, the human capital coming with us, working in the startup, building the processes, building the products for it. And then maybe that's a little bit of difference in from your view, but the rest, I align on what you said here.
And a very important thing that we should mention is that we are not looking for an exit as such. We are not looking for selling the company later on with a multiple of X, because we are working in the same, or we enlarge a little bit the same branch. So that means if we can grow faster, we are happy. If we can create a profitable business, of course, that's something that not a lot of startups will achieve. But nevertheless, I think the impact that we can create is in the focus, and not the EBIT that you generate after 5 years or things like that. Yeah. But of course, if we want to invest, we do not want to invest all the time and make investor rounds year by year.
I think that's also a little bit a difference between a CVC and another VC, right? A little bit the different, or I mean, you're two the experts, but from what I hear, that this makes a big difference of the goal and how.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's why I understand meanwhile that startups do not want to cooperate with corporates, because you cannot scale that fast. Maybe sometimes it's very complicated, and maybe they do not have the same target or the same view what they want to achieve within 3 years or things like that. So, and I understand every startup that doesn't want to cooperate if they have enough money, or if they do not want to have big corporates in their portfolio.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat as you, but in energy, I think, so we are also a strategic investor. We don't need to exit after 4 or 5 years and aim to do then 5x return or something like that. We invest because of the knowledge that comes with it, and especially because it's faster, or the hope is that we get the solutions faster to market with this and working faster than if we would do it ourselves. But on top of that, what we can offer to startups, particularly in the energy industry, is that we have the assets. So we have the customers, but we also have, I don't know, the nuclear power plants. And if you build a drone that is there to read out data with new sensors in the containment of a nuclear power plant, and you don't have a corporate partner, but only VCs, that's going to make your life much harder than if you have a partner that gives you access to the assets faster. Or for Axpo could also be the trading licenses for the different energy markets, for example. So I think that's credibility. Also could be market access or access to assets. And for us, it's definitely speed and the knowledge, as you said. Yeah. So those are the why we do it. Now,
but Steffi, you wanted to add at the end something.
No,
after
it's good.
us.
And maybe it comes later.
When
right?
it comes to market and customers.
Yeah.
Especially for your DACH region.
Yeah, it's just that the vision is not clear over the years. It's just something we always had to adapt, right? Because we didn't know what might be really profiting or contribute to the core business in the end of our owners. And so you always, in the beginning, it was, I think, a white paper, and you could do whatever you want and then play a bit around. And now it's really to create business. So now we have to build leads. We will be assessed by numbers and so on. So this is also a big shift, right? And now I'm more closer to this corporate role, really to say, okay, I have to bring in something. And it's not like we can develop the products on our own. It really has to build to the strategy and contribute to the strategy of the owners. And I think this is also an important aspect. Maybe we can also look a bit deeper into how this will change and what does it take when you're really a startup a spin-off of the owner in special. No.
I'll take that segue and say, like, okay, so how does success actually look like? Like, do you go, like, Philip, before you start anything, do you define a strict set of KPIs and say, I'll measure it after 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, or do you allow for some flexibility? And what would that usually look like?
At first, I have to mention that me and my team are standing between the big corporate and the startup. So, because we are a little bit mediatoren who bring the different ideas together or try to match these different ideas, a way of working together, things like that. So, and of course, we want to make it successful. And if we apply to invest into a startup, of course we make our business plan and we bring together all the arguments and things like that. And of course we set some KPIs. And first, in the case of Holo, we wanted to reduce the cash drain. So we do not want it to invest all the time every year or every period of 3 years, things like that. So we have to create a model where we focus more on what we already achieved and sell these less products, but these products we have to sell. And on the other hand, reduce this cash drain and then make you more attractive maybe for other investors and create a sustainable business model. And in that period, when we approached Holo, they were changing their former business model with a pivot into a new business model. And that's always an interesting part where a big corporate can help with defining a new strategy where you just don't, where you do not burn cash all the time, but create value. That means a sustainable business model that can survive. And very often it goes from B2C market to B2B market because you will not spend that much money attracting end customers with campaigns, things like that, and be longer in a market where the development of the overall market lasts longer if the payback comes to your company.
What about you when working together with corporates? How do you measure success? So you said the trust, credibility. That's hard to put a number on. Is it in the end just like how much sales or revenue can I drive with a collaboration?
Well, I think it depends on what side we look. Are we looking like a corporate invest in the business and we're in this investor relationship, or am I as for example for us we need installation firms, we need and so on and so on. I'm talking about a corporation like, for example, Helion or a corporation like this that is installing and is kind of a supplier to us or whatever, right? So it depends on which side I look. What are the KPIs? If I look for partnerships, it's like I said, it's about trust, it's about market access, and so on, and also that we can give something away that we don't have to do this, that create a partnership that they can do this, which they have much more knowledge and so on, and then
maybe specific for corporate spin-off, what would you say are the main differences and main risks that come on top of a normal startup corporate relationship? Like, is it like you start with one exclusive client and you have doesn't this hinder the innovative spirit, if you want, of a?
Oh, that's a good point, right? So that sometimes, of course, there are some points where you can profit from your owner, from this corporate system, but when it comes to the speed from my daily operations, it can also be limiting. On the one hand, I have to be hands-on. I'm not doing my specific task I was hired for. I'm doing everything, so to say, because it just has to be done, and there are no background system, but on the other hand, for example, when it comes sending out an NDA. Then, of course, there are 20 lawyers who have to speak with me and explain exactly why we have to keep in Danish law, for example, right? And everyone is asking why. When you want to have a contract in Switzerland or Germany, whatever, and all these, then you realize you're working for a corporate as well, right? And not, but you still need to have the startup mode. And this is sometimes in daily operations, it's really balance, really to bridge, and it makes it easier if you build good relationships sometimes. And then this is also really important to keep the speed, to understand also how corporate works. So I had the advantage that I worked long years for the Volkswagen Group itself. So for me, it's easy to navigate through it and also know sometimes the blockers and how to jeopardize specific challenges, so to say. So and this is, I think this is a specific task where you need also to hire the right people to do so, and also to understand maybe what might be important, because still you have always, the owner has to be happy, because based on that you are allowed to have more freedom to do what you think you do, and also build the strategy around that, maybe also that you have more impact on your perspective on the market. And this is also very important, I think. And this is, on the one hand, it can help when you have the support, then you have also the investment, then you have the freedom, then you have the liberty. And I also have the opportunity that I get open doors for it. If I need it, if I need a specific phone call, I need a contact, then for me it's easier to get there. And sometimes it's blocking, of course, because I'm limited, because this is the way we go. These are my KPIs, these are my goals, my measurements. And even if I think not really right, it takes a long time. If I have fought my fight really to say, okay, maybe we should switch a bit in this strategy. And this is, I think, this is the main difference between a corporate startup and not a corporate startup. No.
What would you say how much time it takes you, like in a percentage-wise, like, you know, this task of, you know, talking to the corporate as an investor and so on, of your daily business, like, yeah.
Indirectly, it's I would say it's 10% of my daily business, because I always translate, right? I always try to understand what is working, what is not working. Maybe I give you a practical example. So in the beginning, we were offering operations not only for autonomous driving, so for logistics, and also for passengers, also for drones. And I realized very quickly this is confusing for people, because in operations is actually the same when it comes to the regulatory framework and what skill set do you need, what understanding do you need. Also in the case when you build a safety case around it, but the clients are so different. So because they don't, then they don't allow you really. Do you have really the knowledge for this specific niche when you're also doing this, and these are also big topics. And this is, for example, a good example in the beginning when I started to say, maybe we have to step back from the drone business to give us more credibility for the other topics. And it took half a year, I would say, to understand it, of course, in the market, and also get the feedback, and also maybe in that sense sometimes to distance from the owner a bit, and on the other hand sometimes go hand in hand. And yeah.
Talking about speed, I've seen cases where doing the NDA took 2 months, which was longer than actually the pilot project was set up for. How do you handle the super slow decision times in corporates, especially compared to a startup where everybody kind of does everything, as you just mentioned?
Yeah.
So for me, it takes a lot of patience. Yeah. So and I would also say that this is one of the challenges, and for me at least, working together with corporates as I want to be fast. I want to make fast decision process, and then working together with the corporate takes so long, and sometimes you feel that there's no reason why it takes so long, and it's just a process. So what I have learned is just to accept it, and just to say, okay, I categorize differently, right? I do projects with corporates. We do projects without corporates, and we say, okay, those projects without corporates, we have different, time process where we want to reach where, and then if we work together with the corporate, I just asked a factor of 3, and then it's easier to accept, right? If it takes longer, and you're getting less nervous, and also it helps the working together. And what I try to speed it up is always, in the discussion with the person you have, you set the next timeline. So I ask the corporate, say, okay, I see you have to talk to somebody else, and then, okay, when would you have time? When should we schedule the next meeting for discussing this point? And yeah, even this is like a kind of trick to make this process faster. It creates a little bit of pressure to the other guy to then also deliver. Of course, like often then it's not delivered, but this is my strategy to trying to get this process done faster, making the people accountable, and then also sending them an email, hey, next week we're looking forward for this meeting and discussing the next point, and then didn't do it yet. So I was like, oh, okay.
So accountability and peer pressure.
Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, that's my way of trying to. But it takes a lot of patience. Yeah, with the advantages comes also the challenges, right? And you wouldn't agree?
Have you found a way to solve this?
Not 100%. It depends a little bit on how you work together. So my suggestion is here to be directly involved. First, be part of the board, then create and steer the company, and then have your own projects. Then you are involved and you have your personal interest of growing and go on and create much faster. And therefore we created our organization because we are the intermediate to accelerate in both ways. And the more investors you have, the more complex it is. So not every investor is part of the board, and some topics you have to discuss with the main investors as well. So, and therefore I think we have a very simple structure. So we have two main investors, and we are discussing at the moment to bring a new investor into the company. But if you do not need the money, why do you need more discussions? And so that's always a point. So, but most of the time, a lot of startups, they are really looking for financing their enterprise, and therefore they need the money. They need more investors, and sometimes some investors do not want to invest for a new ticket or things like that.
Yeah, my answer to this, yeah, I agree with you. But there's for me, there's two viewpoints. Either you have the corporate as an investor and he's sitting on your board. It's a different thing than if you work at it as a partner and he's not the investor, right? So it's a different thing. One is a partnership, and one is the other guy's in the board and he's invested in the company.
My answer is to make both, and then you're much faster.
Yeah, of course there is also the advantage and also the disadvantages, right? Yeah, but and then also
I know you cannot select your parents.
Yeah, yeah, but on the investor side you can actually. Yeah. And you have to try to put yourself in a position where you can.
Yeah.
And but still I would argue that it takes still longer. I agree, if you have the investor on the board and a good relationship, it goes much faster than all other ways. But still there, often, or the guy that you're talking to, as for me, the founder, sometimes it's not the guy that is allowed to make the final decision. So he has to ask at least permission from another guy, and they form the decision together. And the other guy is also super busy. So the guy I talk to tells you, yeah, okay, I agree with you. Let me just confirm this with my partner, and then the partner, and they find each other, in 2 weeks. And then, and this is at least for me, if we make a decision, we can make it much faster. So still there, I would argue, yeah, it helps. It makes much faster, but still compared to startup decision making, it's still.
Just one word.
Yeah.
So what I experienced 2 times with startups is not the problem in the board or the problem or within the investor as such, but the investors, they were not aligned in their overall owner strategy. So some of the investors wanted this, some of the investors wanted that, and that makes it very complex for CEOs or management teams in the startup to really perform, because they block each other because they're not aligned in where they want to go.
So clear vision, mission statement.
Yeah, and strategy at the end of the day. And if they are not aligned, it's always very... One wants to sell after 3 years and the other one wants to keep it and develop. That doesn't work. And then you have these situations where you do not get it decisions in the day-by-day business, maybe. And yeah. So I do not want to say that these clashes don't exist. I experienced that, but now if we achieve if we want or approach a startup, we at the beginning want to align our owner strategy together and then go on.
So you only collaborate with a startup if you also take an ownership stake?
Yeah. Okay. Oh no, of course we have corporations. Yeah. But then it's a day-by-day cooperation. But if we invest, then we want to be sitting in the board, and maybe we create a white label solution for us at the end of the day, or we integrate, or we take a bigger stack, or...
What about...
So for this case, I guess your recommendation is be careful in selecting your parents, if you can select them. Like as a corporate spin-off, I guess that's a different story.
Then actually, to be honest, it would be very fruitful to have at that point different investors, because it would speed up a bit the whole process, to be honest. Right now, because one of the owners doesn't really maybe see the value add for his own core business, because he hasn't developed yet a strategy. And so he just see this specific startup like Holo more as it's burning cash, so to say. Maybe the investment were too early, because right now the market is booming in this kind of business. So it would help to have right now different perspective, different also strategies, and also maybe a bit more push that maybe it needs more risk to
more
invest more. Yeah. At the moment, I would say it would help where we are, because then it would be easier to build really the scale up right now. But on the other hand, it's also a challenge really to build it in the sense where we are. So, yeah, but that's my personal view. So we are in a stage right now where it would be helpful to have a different perspective, different investors for it.
Maybe, George, you can give your view on this one. You hadn't had the chance to.
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, also looking at the time, I could summarize and then we go to Q&A. So what we learned in the beginning, like what we actually look for, is on the startup side with the big corporates. You mentioned the credibility and the trust, and for sure the cash that comes with a collaboration or also with an equity ticket. On the corporate side, I think we settled on speed, so how fast we can bring something to market, and the knowledge built up in areas that we would probably not be active otherwise, or only much later.
Not only speed and go to market, but scale a product then really to profit. I think that's the most complex and most complex thing to really to succeed. Scalability.
And in the kind of building up a relationship, it's kind of the two separate worlds that move at different speeds. So your recommendation was patience. Yeah, you actually said past experience of like you knew the corporate, so you know how to navigate it. You know the right persons. I think important to have in mind that the person that you're talking to might not be the one that actually can do the final decision by himself, but already looping in others that can speed up the decision-making process. I think that's very important. And then finally, in the selecting your parents or your owners topic, I think that's a very key topic for startups. If you have the luxury of having a startup that many people want to invest in, and you can pick where you take the money from, to be smart about constructing your cap table and choosing a good combination of stuff that you can get from a strategic corporate investor, such as stability or access to networks or to assets or to markets or whatever, and the things that the financial investor can bring that is more like push and really optimizing for the growth, etc.
And what happens from time to time is that we can help bridging to other corporate investors. So because they look at us and they think, oh, if they do that, maybe it could be interesting to go together with them, and then bring other 2 or 3 players into that venture, if you want that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so we've been talking a lot. Time for you to ask some questions if you want. Yes?
You have to wait for the microphone.
Ah, yeah, wait for the recording.
or just scream.
Thank you very much. Very interesting, a lot of different insights. We were talking a lot about speed. As a startup myself, when we approach corporates, some stages it's more, okay, we want to try and get them as clients, maybe in the future investors, but maybe the first stage get as clients to show that there's value to add. When you see a startup approaching, what are the elements that make you think, okay, this is going to be quick and easy, this is going to be long and hard? Is it like the data that we need that is proprietary? Is it the money that we ask? Are you looking for a big team, small team? Is it kind of the type of value proposition is clear, or there's a bit of co-creation in there? What are the elements that make you shy away in terms of, oh, this is going to be hard, or, oh, this is easy to integrate?
I think I can go. From it's 2 different things if you're talking about a collaboration thing or an investment case.
For now, just as a client kind of collaboration,
right. Yeah. So here I think it's very important that it is very clear what is the problem that you're tackling and what is your solution and how does it look like also in more detail. But on a level that I can understand it, looking at 20 different verticals or so. Because we have in mind very clearly what we look for the different areas. And then if I don't understand what your solution can do, then it's probably a rather quick no. So that's, I think, for me, the most important from a collaboration perspective is like, do I think that you have a shot at solving the challenge that I'm trying to solve for my business? So
collaboration works very quickly. I think that it's easy to activate within a few weeks. Investment is another thing. So but you were asking for collaboration. I think if we see a benefit that you can bring in with your product, of course, then we can start a cooperation. But if we do not have a need, then it's more complex. But it's totally different, as you mentioned, if we talk about investments or shares. So normally we go proactive and scout in the market and looking for what suits best in our strategy, and then we detect startups and then we talk to them, and then of course we start cooperating, exchanging, and we talk about potential investment opportunities. Because we become closer together and we understand much better how it's working, or to source technology. You can source technology by cooperation, or you can source technology by co-investment.
Maybe if I can just answer, they know much more, but just in my experience, if I got you right, you also asked for selling the product to them a little bit, right? And and what I learned, what is super important, is that you access the right person. So corporates, there's so many different business units, and everybody is responsible for something else. If you talk to the wrong person, he's going to say and if you just talk to the person sitting on the right to him, he's going to tell you yes. So pick the right person to
or multiple persons.
Or multiple persons, but just if a corporate tells you no, it's not a no. You can ask somebody else, and it might be a yes.
Yeah, and prepare yourself before you start asking somebody in a company. Make your research and find people that are really responsible and really have see the benefit. And
maybe one last point is also not if in the end, you're looking for money, of course. You look for an investment, but it might be also going the direction looking for a partnership. What might be the advantage if you cooperate with a specific corporate? For example, would it help for industrialization? Do you need specific network? Could need access to whatever is part of this corporate? And this is also an advantage. When you see there's a match, a collaboration, that might be easier, like for someone like AMAG, because then they see also the opportunity to invest, because they could need the product and might be also helpful in building it.
Question here. How the corporates are structured so that startups can reach out to the right person?
So it happens very frequently that contacts have been handed over to us, to the innovation lab, because secretaries or receptionists get informations and then they hand it over to us, or other business units hand over to us. We get connected and contacted by LinkedIn, of course, or by email directly. But if I see in the first sentence that this is not something not very specific and somebody didn't his homework, I just delete it. That's a little bit the hurdle that you have to pass. But I think it's very obvious where you have to address yourself, and a lot of people will help you within that process. But it's better to make your research in advance.
Sure, but AMAG is lucky enough to have an innovation lab, which is not the case of every corporate.
Yeah.
If a corporate doesn't have any innovation lab yet, collaboration may exist. So how do you reach out to the right person?
Of course, maybe you can go to the head of marketing, if you know this person, or you can make your research and find it out or over contacts. That's always a good starting position in some companies, for instance. And head of development, if that exists, is another possibility to start. And maybe somebody can help you because you know somebody from the company, and they can hand you over to the right person. So
I would also always check how high can you go in. The higher you go, the more strategic a role they have, the more they know what your problem or what you want to sell, who you have to talk to. And they might help you to point to the right direction if you can prove that you bring value to the company. So try to go as high in as possible to the person that you can reach on the phone.
It would also be my recommendation, like at AMAG and at Axpo, we have these teams, like it's part of my team's job to route these requests to the right contact persons and to know who the right contact persons are. But we still get like some people contact the CEO and then he forwards to me. So, but then that gets read. So that definitely helps if you enter as high as possible.
Hi. So I wanted to ask how you protect the startup to not over-customize to the big corporate partner or investor. So that's why at some stages it's more clever to have 5 smaller customers than 1 big one, because you over-customize maybe to his direction. So what is your strategy and how you can protect also your investments?
So I would say we are really on a journey here. So our lab exists now for more than 7 to 8 years. And we have learned, had made our learning curve, and I trained our organization on that, because now maybe I would say we understand better what is good for us, and that had to, so we have to go through a process. And the big problem is that you will hand over all your governance, corporate stuff onto the startup, and then you really kill the startup, and you kill the activity, the agility, all the benefits. And therefore, I would say we are a little bit the organization that protects the startup and wants to really create the best out of this cooperation. And of course, you have this pressure from finance, from controlling, from legal, from IT, because they always say, you have a zoo of solutions within your portfolio. We have to streamline these platforms or sales apps or things like that. So, but that's my personal view. Maybe there are other solutions.
Yeah, I just wanted to say last question because we're already over time.
The thing is whether a comment. I have another question, but I would like to get the comment. I have been working really in a corporate innovation partnerships team for a couple of years for a large company, and we had it in arena. Focus is really key here. Many companies approaching with the technology, startups especially, showing the breadth and hoping that the company decides what I want to get out of it. And there's bigger corporates which have different departments, which are really structured and so on. Homework doing and saying, okay, what's my best shot? What's my core value of my technology? Really sharpening this. If you can do this in one sentence, and then look with this sentence for where in a large corporate does this fit really? Where do I address a solution? It gets much easier to find the right person. It gets much easier to get the advantage. Yeah, that's a huge difference between getting money, and that's the other comment. I would not always look asking for, okay, money, it's a resource, but it's one type of resource. And there are many other resources a corporate can bring in and be valuable for the company. So my recommendation is really look for the best possible entry point with your solution, and it gets much easier to find the right persons. And then you can also link in AI and whatever. So.
Also very nice match with your example with the drones and to give up the drones to fully focus and make it super transparent what you're actually offering.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I hope you have a nice rest of the day and enjoy sunshine in Bern.
Thank you.